She handed me my drink with an ice cube already half melted. That's when I knew. I know how stupid that sounds. But that tiny block of melting silence said everything she didn't. She always brought my drink fresh, 2 cubes, untouched, glass frosty. Always. But not tonight. Tonight, I got a drink that had been sitting out. A drink that had waited too long. Like me. She sat across from me in our kitchen, tapping her nails on the table like she wanted it to speak instead of her. I stared at the waterline climbing up the side of the glass. The silence stretched so thin it felt like if either of us breathed too hard, it would snap and slice someone's throat. Then she said it. Not like a confession. Not like a tragedy. More like a favor. I've been seeing him for almost a year. No name. No explanation. Just him. As if I should have known. Maybe I did. She didn't cry. Didn't flinch. Just looked at me like I was a dog that had brought her the wrong stick. I think I said, okay. Not because I was okay, but because I didn't know what else to say when your entire life folds inward in 3 seconds. She looked disappointed by my lack of fireworks. Like she expected screaming, sobbing, begging. Maybe a plate smashed against the wall. But all I did was sit there, staring at the stupid, sweating glass. She crossed her arms. You'll get over it, she said, like I'd lost a sock. That's when I stood up. The chair scraped back like it was protesting. I didn't touch the drink. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't look at her again. I just walked out the front door, barefoot, into the freezing Indiana night. And the worst part? She didn't come after me. It was 2:13 in the morning when I realized her phone was still synced to my car's Bluetooth. I hadn't gone back inside. I couldn't. I sat in the driveway, shivering, in that pathetic little hatchback she always made fun of, the one she said felt like riding inside a sad dishwasher. That dishwasher had become my bunker. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have anything but time and shame. So I turned the ignition on for warmth. The Bluetooth automatically connected. And then, God help me, her Spotify started playing. Not my playlists. Hers. But it wasn't her usual junk. She wasn't playing her Rainy Girl Autumn playlist. Not even her Don't Talk to Me, I'm baking stuff. It was something called Red Couch Nights. I had never seen that before. It wasn't even private. Curious, or maybe masochistic, I opened the list. Each song title felt like a confession. Secret Place. Midnight Guest. You Never Knew. I didn't want to be that guy. The snooping, creeping guy. But she'd already dragged me into the mud. So I let myself sink. I scrolled deeper. Track after track. Mood music. Sexy, slow, curated for someone specific. Not just background sound. This was made with him in mind. Not me. And then I saw it. A pinned playlist description. Just 4 words. For G. Always us. G. I don't know why, but those 4 words punched harder than the cheating itself. Always us. Like she belonged to him. Like she saw them as something real, as something worth naming. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the car, the engine off now, freezing again, replaying our entire last year in my head like I was trying to find the glitch in the Matrix. I remembered our vacation to Maine. How she said she felt off because of work. I remembered how she started wearing perfume before errands. I remembered the way she began saying babe, like it was an apology, not affection. But most of all, I remembered how I thought we were doing okay. I really did. I thought we were just busy, just tired, just like every other couple who'd been together for nearly a decade. Turns out, I was the only one still in the relationship. Around 4:45 a.m., I saw her silhouette at the window, backlit by the kitchen light. She didn't come outside. She just looked out, holding a mug in her hands like she was starring in some kind of indie film where she plays the misunderstood wife with secrets. She stared right at me. Didn't wave. Didn't blink. Didn't open the door. And I realized something chilling. She wanted me to stay out there. She wanted distance. Silence. Time. Time to let the version of me she used to love finally freeze to death, so she wouldn't have to kill it herself. And I wish I could say I did something bold right then. Drove off. Called a lawyer. Packed a bag. But all I did was sit there, in a hoodie that smelled like her shampoo, and let the last of the warmth drain out of me. I was no longer her husband. I was just a man sitting in a car that still thought she belonged to him. The next morning I walked back into the house like a guest. Not like someone who lived there, loved there, broke down in the laundry room once over a dropped pie. I just quietly turned the knob, stepped inside, and everything smelled wrong. Her lemon candles were burning. The counters were wiped. The table was set with 2 plates, like nothing happened. Like she hadn't looked me in the face 12 hours earlier and detonated my life with 5 words. You'll get over it. She wasn't in the kitchen. I heard the shower running. The water pressure was low again, something I'd promised to fix for weeks. Funny how I thought I had time. I should have packed a bag and left. I should have walked upstairs, thrown some clothes in my old gym duffel, and vanished. But instead, I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at her purse. It was half-zipped, and a corner of her tablet was sticking out. I don't know what came over me, but something about how calm she was, how confident, made me furious in this soft, slow-burning kind of way. So I reached in. No password. Just swipe and tap. She probably assumed I'd never go near her tech. She wasn't wrong, until now. At first, it was all surface level. Work emails, grocery lists, a Pinterest board full of tattoo ideas she'd never shown me. But then, buried under a folder titled Wellness, of all things, I found it. A second email account. It wasn't connected to her name. It was under some stupid alias, FelixLight38 at something. I nearly backed out. I nearly gave her the dignity of privacy, even after everything. But then I saw the subject lines. Last Thursday was insane. Still thinking about it. Can we sneak another hour this week? I found one of his socks under the bed. Close call. Each message hit like a hammer. But the timestamps were worse. These weren't from a year ago, or even months ago. They were from last week. 2 days before she kissed me on the cheek and asked if I wanted to make pancakes together. I opened one. Then another. Then 5 more. I couldn't stop. They were detailed, graphic, gleeful. They joked about me, called me Mr. Routine and King of Boredom. She said she felt like a widow with a roommate. But the worst message, the one that made my stomach go cold, was titled simply, The Plan. It wasn't even long. Just a few lines. She had written, I'll tell him this week. Probably Tuesday. I think he'll just shut down and leave. That's who he is. He won't make a scene. No mess. Just sadness. That's how he disappears. She had predicted me. Like I was a character in a book she had already finished. Like she had written me to be spineless. And the sickest part? She was right. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I sat there, crushed beneath the weight of someone else's certainty that I'd do nothing. The water stopped upstairs. I could hear her padding around. Closet door opening. Drawers closing. Humming again. That same damn humming. I slid the tablet back into her bag, zipped it gently, and walked to the sink. I poured a glass of water. My hand was shaking so badly I spilled some. She came down the stairs smiling, wearing a sweater I bought her for Christmas last year, the one she said made her feel soft and safe. Hey, you came back in, she said casually, like I'd just stepped out to grab the mail. I was thinking we could talk over some tea. I nodded slowly. Sure. But in my head, something snapped. Not loud. Not wild. Just a quiet break, like a worn-out hinge finally giving up. She thought she had me figured out. She thought I'd just fold. But this time, she was wrong. She talked the entire time we drank that tea, as if nothing was broken. As if she hadn't turned me into a placeholder with a heartbeat. She went on about how things had been weird for a while, how she didn't mean for it to happen, how she tried to fight it, and how he just made her feel alive again. You'd think she was confessing to adopting a puppy behind my back, not detonating our marriage from the inside out. I nodded through it all, even offered the occasional polite, But I wasn't listening. Not to the words, anyway. I was listening to the rhythm. Her speech had a tempo now, like she'd rehearsed it. Like this wasn't the first time she'd delivered this little TED talk on how to kill your husband's soul gently. The funny part? She looked relieved, like telling me had scratched something off her to-do list. She actually said, I feel lighter now. Meanwhile, I could feel my insides hollowing out like a carved pumpkin left too long in the sun. After she was done, I told her I needed to take a walk. I think that surprised her. Maybe she expected me to cry, or lash out, or beg. But I just slipped on my shoes and stepped outside, into the cold. No destination. No jacket. I walked past the grocery store where we used to argue about almond milk. Past the park where we once lost our dog for 20 minutes, and both cried like lunatics when we found him. Past the bakery where she lied to a cashier once, and said we were newlyweds just to get a free muffin. Everything felt fake now. Like someone had replaced my memories with scenes from a knockoff movie version of my life. When I got back, she was asleep on the couch with the TV on. A rom-com was playing. I stood there for a long time, watching her breathe like nothing had changed. Like I was just a roommate who came back from a late shift. That night, I didn't sleep. I opened my laptop and made a folder. I named it Exit. Inside, I started saving copies of everything I found on her devices. I went back into that burner email and downloaded the entire archive. I screen recorded everything. I took photos of her tablet with timestamps. I noted her passcodes, her patterns, her favorite hiding spots. I backed it all up to an encrypted cloud drive with a password she'd never guess in a million years. Felix Light is dead. By morning, I had enough to paint the full, ugly picture. Trips they took while she told me she was at work conferences. Photos of them in hotel robes with breakfast trays. A video of her laughing in bed, his voice behind the camera. That one hurt more than anything. Not because of what she did, but because of how happy she looked doing it. But here's the thing. I still hadn't told her I knew. She thought I'd walked away from the truth. That I was just a stunned, silent victim licking his wounds. What she didn't know was that I had decided to burn everything. Just very, very slowly. I started small. I made her favorite coffee in the morning, extra sweet, just the way she liked it. I warmed her seat in the car before she left. I even folded her laundry and left it neatly on the bed with a smiley face posted. She smiled more. She let her guard down. She started wearing that burgundy blouse again, the one he bought her. She thought I was healing. She didn't know I was watching her heal into the perfect position to fall. She didn't know I was building a story of my own, one with no heroes, just very careful timing. And she definitely didn't know what I had already done to her second life. 3 days later, something strange happened. She came into the kitchen humming, again, and asked me if I had seen her wallet. I hadn't. Or rather, I had. But I wasn't going to tell her that. I just shook my head and gave her the most innocent, "No, babe, sorry," I could muster. She blinked, looked at me suspiciously for a split second, then laughed it off. But that pause told me everything. For the first time in this entire nightmare, she was the one who didn't feel in control. She eventually found it. Exactly where she left it, tucked between 2 cookbooks on the shelf. But by the time she did, I had already transferred $7,200 from our joint savings into a separate account, one with only my name on it. That was her mistake. She assumed, as all cheaters do, that the person they're betraying is too heartbroken to think clearly. But clarity comes at odd hours when you've been emotionally stabbed. It walks in during sleepless nights. It whispers in your ear when you stir your coffee alone at 2 a.m. It doesn't yell. It plans. Over the next week, I turned into someone I didn't recognize, but I liked him. I took control of our bills and payments, all under the guise of giving her space. I told her I'd handle the rent, the utilities, the credit cards. She looked touched, said, "That's so mature of you." Meanwhile, I changed every password and redirected everything to an email address she didn't know existed. I froze the credit line she opened last year without telling me. I pulled up the lease to the house. My name was the only one on it. I'd forgotten that little detail when we signed. She clearly had too. She started going out more. Meetings, yoga, wine with the girls. I never questioned it. I even offered to drive her once or twice, but she declined, a little too fast. She had no idea that every time she left the house, her phone synced automatically to our smart TV's account via shared logins. I could see every new contact she added, every photo uploaded to her cloud, every new app she downloaded. That's how I found Theraноte. It's a private journaling app disguised as a therapy log. Cute little padlock icon. Password protected, of course. But she used the same password for everything. Pumpkin92. Our first dog's name and her birth year. She thought she was clever. Her entries were chilling, detailed, emotional, self-serving. She wrote like she was the one who had been hurt. Like I was this dull, invisible lump of a man who had held her back emotionally and never saw her for who she really was. She wrote about how Griffin made her feel 18 again, and how I only made her feel 42 and stuck. The words that hurt most weren't even the cruel ones. It was the casualness, the ease, the way she reduced our 9 years into footnotes between orgasms with someone else. She also wrote about me coming back into the house that first night. Said I seemed small, confused, already halfway gone. She was half right. But what she didn't know was that I was slowly pulling out the pins holding her second life together. I started by canceling the subscription for her meal kit deliveries. They just stopped arriving. Then her gym membership. Her Spotify. I didn't cut off the electricity. No, I wanted the lights on when everything fell apart. I even called the airline, anonymously, and canceled 2 tickets she had booked for a business seminar in Vermont. The same trip she'd promised Griffin in that burner email. She'd booked it using our joint travel points. My points, technically, all gone. She cried that night. Not in front of me, of course. I heard it through the vents. Muffled. Alone. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. But it didn't stop me either. The next morning, she made me breakfast for the first time in months. Eggs. Toast. Orange juice with pulp. She hates pulp, but I love it. She sat down, smiled, and asked me how I'd been feeling emotionally. It was the first time she had asked me a question about myself in weeks. And I realized she was scared. Not of me, but of what I might know, or what I might be doing. She knew something was shifting. She just didn't know how fast. And still, I hadn't said a word about what I'd seen. Not the emails. Not the journal. Not Griffin. Because I was saving my voice for something that would echo. Something final. It vanished on a Thursday, sometime between her second glass of wine and the start of her favorite baking show. Her engagement ring. The one I gave her on a rainy night in a parking lot behind a Thai restaurant. With a voice so shaky, I almost swallowed the proposal. She had kept it all these years, even when she clearly stopped loving me. It had been downgraded, of course, from her left hand to a jewelry dish in the bathroom, then tucked in a drawer, then left beside the sink like a paperweight for her mascara. But it was still there. It was a symbol, if nothing else. A monument to something real that we once had. Until it was gone. I watched her pace the bedroom, her voice rising, drawers slamming. "Where the hell is it?" she kept muttering. I could have told her. I could have walked in, opened my palm, and shown her the tiny velvet box I'd slipped it back into. I could have asked her what it meant to her now, after all these lies, all this mess. But I said nothing. I let her panic. Let her feel that small loss. Because I wanted her to taste what it was like when something sacred just disappears. That morning, I had taken the ring, wrapped it in tissue, and placed it inside a lockbox I rented under a different name at a bank 2 towns over, along with a printed copy of her email archive, the burner account, the Vermont booking, screenshots of her chats, one of the recordings. I was building a vault, not for revenge, but for insurance. Because I still didn't know how far she'd go once I decided to stop pretending. When she finally stopped searching, she sat at the edge of the bed, dazed, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. I stood in the hallway and watched through the crack in the door. It felt cruel, but strangely honest. She was always the one in control, always the one adjusting the dials of our marriage. That ring had been her reminder that I still believed in us, even when she didn't. And now, with it gone, she looked like a person trying to mourn a memory that refused to come back. She didn't ask me about it that night, but she was quiet, different, like something in her had started to rot, and she was the only one who could smell it. The next day, she sent me a link. It was to a couples therapy group, some retreat in upstate Michigan, 3 days of emotional realignment and healing through guided vulnerability. I didn't respond. I just looked at the page, then deleted the message. She sent another one later. "I know I hurt you. I want to fix it." I stared at that sentence for a long time. I wondered if Griffin knew she was reaching out to me. I wondered if she sent him the same kind of texts when she started pulling away from me. I wondered if this was damage control or genuine regret. But most of all, I wondered how a person can want to fix something they never cared about breaking in the first place. She cooked dinner that night. Chicken marsala. Lit a candle. Played a jazz playlist she always used to put on when things were good between us. She tried to talk to me. Asked about my day, about work, even about my friend Theo, whom she once called irrelevant to my growth. I gave her polite answers. Nothing more. Because I wasn't playing husband anymore. I was a ghost in his own house, watching her try to convince the mirror she hadn't destroyed everything. Later that night, she curled up beside me on the couch. No words. Just placed her head on my shoulder like nothing had changed. And for a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. Until I remembered how she used that same shoulder to cry after her grandmother's funeral. And how sacred it felt then. Now it was just furniture to her. A familiar shape in a room she used to love. When she fell asleep, I moved her head gently to a pillow and got up. I walked into the kitchen, pulled the tablet from her purse, opened her journal app, and saw a new entry. "I think he knows something. He's changed. Cold. Distant. Almost calculated." She was right. But she had no idea just how far that calculation would go. It was her idea to host the dinner. A reset, she called it. Just a few close friends, wine, candles, laughter. The kind of evening that looks good in filtered Instagram stories. She said it might lighten the atmosphere, maybe help us find some warmth again. I nodded, pretending to be on board. But in reality, the second she suggested it, something inside me stirred. Not rage, not pain, something colder, calculating. Because if she wanted a performance, I was finally ready to give her one. I spent the whole afternoon helping her clean the house, arrange charcuterie, decant the wine too early like I didn't know any better. I even ironed her favorite table runner, the one with little embroidered pears that she bought in a gift shop on a road trip we never finished. She smiled at me a lot that day. Maybe she thought this meant progress. Maybe she mistook quiet calculation for forgiveness. I let her believe it. By 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. Our friends came in smiling, laughing, completely oblivious to the poison bubbling under the floorboards. There was Theo and his girlfriend Lana, always a little too perfect together. Our old neighbors Kyle and Marla, who brought pie. And then there was Nora, Felicity's work friend, the one who never liked Griffin. I remember those exact words from a year ago. I never thought much of them then. But now they echoed. Dinner was smooth, too smooth. Felicity talked more than usual. She performed well. Warm, witty, glowing even. She poured wine like a hostess who still had everything under control. But I watched her eyes, and they told another story. She was scanning me constantly, measuring my tone, my expressions, waiting for signs that I might break script. Halfway through dessert, someone mentioned Vermont. Lana was talking about leaf season and how her parents used to take her up every October. And that's when I did it. I looked across the table, smiled, and said, "Isn't that where you were planning to go for that seminar, Fel?" She froze for half a second, just enough for me to know she hadn't expected it. Then she laughed it off. "Oh, right. Yeah, but it got canceled. Timing didn't work out." "Oh," I replied, spooning a bite of pie into my mouth. "Because I found the tickets. I thought you might have forgotten to cancel the hotel." Everyone went quiet. Forks stopped midair. Felicity's hand gripped the stem of her wine glass like she might twist it off. Kyle let out a soft, awkward chuckle. "Wait, what hotel?" Felicity's voice was suddenly lighter than air. "It's nothing. Work trip that never happened." I leaned back. "Booked with our points. 4-2. First class." Her jaw flexed. She was holding it together, but just barely. "Can we not do this right now?" I smiled, but not kindly. I thought this was the night to lighten the atmosphere. Everyone looked uncomfortable. Theo stared at me like he didn't recognize who I was anymore. Maybe he didn't. Maybe I didn't either. I stood up and walked into the hallway. I opened the drawer by the front door and pulled out a manila envelope. I walked back in, calm, slow, deliberate, and placed it gently on the table in front of her. Inside, copies of her emails, screenshots of her journal entries, boarding passes, and a photo of her and Griffin outside a hotel in Chicago, 1 month before she said she was visiting her sister. She didn't open it. She didn't have to. Her face said it all. "I thought we could all be honest tonight," I said, looking around the table. "Since we're surrounded by people who care about us." Nora stood up first. She didn't say a word, just shook her head and walked out. Theo followed. Kyle and Marla gave me a confused look like they didn't know which side to hate more. I didn't care. This wasn't about them. This wasn't even about justice. It was about removing the last mask she wore so delicately. The one that told the world she was the better half. She sat there, breathing heavily, hands trembling. "You read my journal," she finally whispered. "You wrote it on a shared device. You didn't even bother changing your password. Don't confuse privacy with laziness." She looked up at me then, eyes blazing, not with rage, but with humiliation. Real, naked humiliation. "Why didn't you just leave?" she asked. And for the first time, I didn't stutter. "Because I wanted you to feel it. Every bit of it. In public. In silence. In front of the people who once thought you were kind." She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She just stood up and left the room. I didn't follow her. I cleared the table alone that night. Washed the dishes. Scrubbed the wine stain she left on the tablecloth when her hand shook. Then I sat down in the empty dining room and finished the pie. I had never tasted anything so bitter in my life. She didn't come back that night. I sat up on the couch, fully clothed, phone face down, waiting for a door slam that never came. At around 3 a.m., the wind picked up and rattled the gutter by the porch, and I remember thinking how strange it was that silence can be louder than screaming. I thought I'd feel victorious, like I'd won. But the house felt like a church after the last candle had been blown out, sacred in its emptiness. By sunrise, I walked upstairs, opened our closet, and started packing. Not her stuff. Mine. Not in a rush. Not with resentment. Just finally ready. I left her a note. Not bitter. Not poetic. Just enough to say, I'm letting go. Of you. Of this. Of the version of myself I became, trying to hold it all together. No threats. No revenge. No list of what she ruined. She already knew. I think that's why she never tried to call again. She had nothing left to say, and I had no interest in rehearsing pain anymore. The next few weeks were quiet. I stayed at Theo's spare room for a while. Slept like a rock for the first time in months. I got my own place eventually. Small, beige, a little pathetic, but mine. Every item in there was something I chose to bring. Nothing left over from the wreckage. It's amazing how light your life feels when you stop carrying someone else's weight. I started therapy. Twice a week at first, then once. It wasn't dramatic. There were no big revelations. Just little ones. Like the fact that I'd been disappearing in my own marriage long before she started sleeping with someone else. Or how often I said, I'm fine, just to avoid confrontation. Or how I thought being quiet meant being strong. Turns out, it just meant being invisible. One afternoon, maybe 6 months after I left, I ran into her by accident. Grocery store. Same aisle. She looked thinner. Paler. She was holding a single avocado and some sparkling water. She froze when she saw me. I smiled first. Not wide, not smug. Just enough to tell her I was okay. She said hi. I said hey. That was it. We didn't rehash. We didn't pretend. We didn't drag the past into aisle 7. We just stood there for a second, two people who once thought they'd grow old together, now buying produce on different paths. She looked like she wanted to say something else. But she didn't. She just gave a sad little nod and walked away. I turned the corner, left the store without buying anything. Didn't need to. Because I realized something that day. Something I never expected. I had finally healed. Not because she apologized. Not because I got closure. Not even because I exposed her lies. But because I didn't need her pain anymore to feel like I had value. I went home. Opened the windows. Played music for the first time in months. No playlists about loss, or betrayal, or heartbreak. Just soft jazz. The kind you play when you're cleaning or dancing alone in the kitchen with a coffee mug in hand. And somewhere between the first and second song, I caught myself laughing at a stupid meme Theo had texted me. I paused, looked at the screen, and thought, this is it. This is what freedom feels like. Not fireworks. Not closure. Just breathing. Just peace. Just a life that finally belonged to me again.